Hello, Jaylanders. I'm Aubrey.
And I'm Peyton.
And today we are once again getting into another JLA book, Book 3 in the Flesh and the Fire series, A Fire in the Flesh, because that's not confusing at all.
Absolutely not. So join us with this cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets.
All right. Let's do this.
Okay, before we get into another JLA book, it's just important that we kind of clarify what section of the episode this is. This is our NS section, our non-spoiler section. And as always for our reviews, we have a non-spoiler section of every episode before, of course, jumping into the spoilers. But don't worry, we will let you know when we are transitioning into the spoiler part of the episode because we are not here to ruin your day. But for today's episode, this book is book 3 in a prequel series of a main series that is already 5 books long and counting, and we're going crazy. But we're going to operate under the assumption that you have already read those previous books. If not, you can check out our From Blood and Ash review. It's the first one of the main series, and you can kind of get a better idea without getting spoilers, because I don't know how to avoid them in this episode for you. So in this video, there won't be any major spoilers, at least before the spoiler section, but there will be minor spoilers as we talk about this book and its contents for the books previous to it in the world. I don't know if that made sense, but just so you know, like, it's non-spoiler for this book.
Yeah.
But like, welcome.
we're gonna try our best, but like, if you're watching a book 3, like, I can't say anything about this book without spoiling stuff that happens in book 1 and 2.
And the 5 books.
But if you're just here for book 3 content, or if you've given up on this series and just want to kind of know what happened so you still feel a part of it without having to read these books, I wouldn't blame you. This is the place to be.
It is. So welcome. This is a safe space.
Yes.
And let's get into a little plot recap on the last book.
Yes. All right. So the last book before this one ended with Sarah trapped in Delos, the city of gods, by Colas, the false primal of life and the true primal of death, after she was sort of possessed by the soul of Sortoria, Colas's Gracia. And this book just picks up like right in that exact moment when she's seeing this white wolf. Or is she seeing this white wolf? It's
illusion.
Yes. The epic JLA ending, which is why I continue to read JLA books, because the endings of her books are so good. We pick up right in that moment, and we don't want to say too much about what happens in this book, because the ending is such a cliffhanger that you don't know what direction this book's going to go in, and we don't want to spoil that for you. We want you to experience it. However, we are definitely going to give our thoughts about this series and this book, because I have a lot of them.
Me too. Last time we did this, I was like, okay, but this time I'm like, I have some concrete like feelings, so
yes,
let's make it heated.
All right, so we have to start off, because this is so far into a book series. How do we feel about the prequel series as a whole?
Yeah. And
then were we excited to get into this book, and how do we feel about it in this whole From Blood and Ash universe? Because this world, the JLA keeps writing these books, and they're always large, and they aren't stopping.
Yeah, so I am pretty sure this goes on record for me, but it is widely known for all of my fans that
all the Peyton stands out there.
Yeah, the prequel series is my favorite.
Yes.
Love our main character, Seraphina? Did I say Seraphina? Yeah.
I don't know.
Seraphine, whatever. Sarah, okay. I love it. I love the romance in this. I love the primal energy in this book. It's my favorite.
Yes.
Finding out that we aren't stopping at book 3, obviously no spoiler wise, I'm kind of upset.
Yes.
because I'm just tired of reading these books.
Yeah. No,
You know,
I'm
it's, Stephanie Meyer didn't write more to Twilight, and there's a reason. Keep the fandom where it's at. Keep him happy. If she keeps on writing Twilight books, like, there's only so much sex Bella and Edward can have. There's only so much of that we can drag out.
yeah. This I was obsessed with this series. The first book, the second book I read in like 3 days. Like, I consumed that book. I love Sarah. I love Ash. I love dealing with the primals just as much as Peyton.
Yes.
I was excited for this book, especially after A Soul of Blood and Ash and Blood, whatever.
It's like
Book
they switched
5
it.
of the
Yeah.
From Blood and Ash series that we read earlier this year, because I was like, okay, that felt like a waste of time. I'm excited for like my main series, and then I started reading it and I was like, oh. And there's like, so JLA has already announced 2 more books about the prequel. One is coming out in February, and it's more of like an atlas, like world building book that she co-wrote with another author. If you read the Shadowhunter series, I think it's going to be like the Shadowhunter guides or codex, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And less like booky. So like, I'm hoping it's like 300 pages max. I mean, I would love it if it was like 100 pages or less, but we gotta know who we're working with here. So praying for 300. And then in May, and if you forgot, like I did, I got to the end of this book and was like, okay, and then turned another page and cried when I saw that book 4 of this series is coming out in May. And I just sent it to Peyton and I was like, another one? We're not done. Like, as much as I loved this series, like, you gotta like hold it while it's good, and then stop keeping, like, don't make more than you should.
Correct.
I think we're walking that line.
We are kind of over that line. And like I said, and I'll definitely get into my feelings in this on the spoiler section, but I just feel like this book could have, there are parts of this book that did not have to go as long as they did, and we could maybe progress the story even farther than even further than in which it ended. I feel like we could have fit their story and Sarah's coming of age, if you will, into 3 books, because I've seen it done before. I know it's possible. And I don't think it was as necessary. Now, am I going to sit here and say I absolutely hated this book? No, I had fun reading this book. There's nothing greater than JLA's romance and characters, and I even though her writing at times, I'm like, oh, it's so cringy, I enjoy it. It's a fun read. This is a read that, like, I'm like, no one look at what I'm reading, because I'm just like enjoying this. But I'm not gonna flaunt my book around and be like, look what I'm reading. So
this is not a book you read like in public a lot of the times. I tried to read the first From Blood and Ash book before, like the very first chapter. I was a baby reader starting to read again back from after high school. Tried to read it in public, and if you don't know, the From Blood and Ash chapter starts with Poppy in the Red Pearl, which is like the brothel, and has like the scene of like Hawk like sucking on her nipple.
It's awkward.
And I had never read like smut in a real book like that before,
and you're like,
and I was in public and I was like shocked. I was not prepared for that, but I am prepared for it in this book, and I know to read at home.
Yeah, so yes, but so it's hard to have feelings about this, but all I gotta say is that it was good.
Yeah, I want to get into the spice and romance of this book a little bit.
Okay,
because without a lot of spoilers, about what is occurring in the book, if you've read a lot of JLA books before, you know typically they start like increasing in spice levels as the characters get to know each other better. And this first book started, like, in the series, started pretty strong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah and Ash were getting into it before they were, like, really anything to each
They
other.
really were, and that's why I kind of liked it. It was
Yeah,
fun.
and it was so nice.
It was like
and
mature. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It wasn't
it
like,
was,
I think I like you, but I'm gonna play hard to get. It's like, no, like I don't really like whatever, but like let's just have sex. Like I kind of
Yeah.
dug that. She like knows who
It's
she is.
very much an adult relationship, especially coming from Poppy, who, not her own fault, but was so sheltered, so innocent maiden virgin.
Yeah.
That, like, coming into a character, Sarah, who is so strong and secure in, like, her body, her sexuality, and, like, those moments, I feel like what JLA does best, besides her epic fantasy endings, is the romance. And
Yeah.
what makes her books so fast to read is that, like, tension between the characters, even once they're together. And this book is severely lacking that.
I would agree with you.
And
I
I
feel like
think-
she tried to make up for it in the last 20 pages.
Yes. And it hurt the book as its entirety. It felt like War of Two Queens. War of Two Queens was severely lacking romance and spice for a majority of the book, and that was so slow because JLA is primarily a romance author before she became a fantasy author. And her pacing for this non-romance stuff is not good.
It's the pacing, you're right.
It's like, I like all of the things that were happening. This book, we're gonna get into it, but like there was not even like that many like mistakes. Like the writing style itself, I feel like has grown from some of the older books in the From Blood and Ash series. But I did not like, I couldn't do the pacing. There was like have you seen those videos where it's like, oh, here's the spicy chapters in this book?
Yes.
If you did it for this book, it would be like
40.
chapter like 38, chapter like, I don't know, some like random like 50 thing or whatever, and then it's like all of the last chapter.
It's like 38 and then 40, 41, 42, 43, 44.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's true. Like I feel like I even heard Rebecca Yaros, who of course like Go Iron Flame, that just came out this week, and we'll be doing a podcast about it soon.
Yes.
She even said, like, I primarily come from romance. I can write a sex scene like no other. Like, I'm down. But when it comes to battles or fight scenes or like strategy, she says, like, I'm not good at it and I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And JLA comes from straight erotica. Like, she's like super romance.
Yes.
Right.
Look at the covers of her other books, and I mean, I would be willing to give him a chance sometime, but
yeah, it's a lot. So anyways, it's just too much. So the beginning really just like dragged out, and I was kind of just like over it. I liked the content. It was just okay, we're still in there. Okay. I think I would have some suggestions.
Yeah.
Anyways,
absolutely. All right, before we move into our star ratings, we have to talk about this with any JLA book, is her writing style, and I kind of hinted at it earlier. Specifically, the lack of an editor. If you follow if you're subscribed to the podcast, you know that we covered The Fall of Wrath and Ruin earlier this year, and that is a traditionally published JLA book with Bramble, which is a Tor offshoot publisher, and I was so excited to read that book, and it held up to standards of like the power of a JLA book with a little bit of help on the back end and some of the like nitty-gritty stuff.
Yeah. I really, and I could, like, we talked about that a lot in that podcast, that like, oh wow, like her writing style is great. This was fun. This was a fun read. And even though, you know, maybe we don't always connect with characters the way you want to, you can't knock a good story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of that, what she worked with the Bramble team, bled into this book. Honestly, I'm here for the hate, especially the first book in this series was the worst, with like typos, with copy paste sentences, with, you know, like stuff that it's like, oh, like I really wish that wasn't there. I think this book was pretty good.
Yeah. I will. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I would read a sentence and I'd be like, that sounds like sophisticated and like well thought out, and not just like word romance vomit, which, hey, has a time and place. Like, I'm here
Yes.
for it. Hence why I keep reading. But sometimes I'm like, oh, like that's a plot line she really thought about. And I
Yeah.
love that. Like, their planning went into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect it, especially when you're dealing with like century-long storylines.
Yeah.
Where people have literally lived 500 years.
Mm-hmm.
And things need to connect from one series to another, and you can do
Yes.
that back and forth. That takes a lot of planning,
Yes.
and I respect that, and it shows through in her writing. And I will say, yes, this book is very well written compared to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, pacing aside. Of course, I love the events that take place in the first book better, but the way that was depicted to me and written out, I didn't necessarily like love.
Yeah. I think that my biggest, like, I don't know, almost ick with these books is the amount of modern lingo that
Yeah.
my girly puts in these books. I took a pink highlighter and I started like highlighting, and this is really hard to hold my mic and do it at the same time, but I started highlighting all of the like obnoxious, like modern lingo, and I'm trying to find one now, and of course I swear it's fucking in here. Oh, there was one. I want to
I
see if
love
I can
doing
find
that.
one to read it out loud. Oh, amazing. I'm so glad that I found this one because it's my favorite one. So no spoilers of like what's going on around here, so you're fine. But Sarah says, out loud, may I add, but if the shoe fits, lace that bitch up and wear it.
But that's like, JLA does this to Sarah so much. Sarah's this like mature, sassy, just amazing person.
Yes.
But like that, you're reading this like fantasy world with like all this complex like hierarchy and primals and gods, and then they're like, but do shoes even have laces? Like,
Yeah.
like,
and like it kind of would fit, but like it feels so modern. It feels
Yeah.
like so ridiculous. She also at one point says that she gets the ick.
That's like, wasn't even around when our parents were young. Like, that's like a new thing.
That is absolutely Gen Z terminology that JLA's like, and now it's whatever century Sarah's in terminology. She's like, I get the ick.
I'm getting icks from you. Yeah, I underlined a lot, and because I don't care about these books anymore, I've been tabbing the pages, and I have to go through and underline more because I didn't have a pen with me when I was reading. I was like, I need to. But
Yes.
I sent Aubrey a couple, and maybe we'll get into them in the spoiler section of things that maybe we'll do something. We'll do this in the spoiler section. Things that made us laugh.
Yeah.
And not that that's any, you know, an analysis or a big review of the story. It's more just so like things I saw that made me giggle.
All right, but now it is time to get into our star ratings.
Oh yeah.
Paiton, what was this book?
Where
did it rank for you?
Yeah, so I read the slowly paced beginning, and I was like, maybe this serves a purpose. And then I got to a really good part, and I was like, this could be a 4. The whole time I'm like, it's probably 3.5. I'm like, this could be a 4, this could be a 4. And then I got to what we were talking about, the 40, 41, 42, 43 ending there, and I was like, nah, it's 3.5. It just has to be, because I can't rank it a 4, because I've ranked books of hers that I have really liked a 4, so that would not be doing those books justice. Therefore, 3.5. On Goodreads, you'll see 3 stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there, 3 stars. I got to a point, like, I don't know, 300 pages in, and I was like, I had to like talk to myself, because you get in a little bit of state of delulu when you finish a book, and you're like,
You
oh,
do.
but the ending was so good. It was so da 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 da. And I talked out loud to myself, and I was like, you are not going to rate this book above a 3.5. That is as high as it can go, because I don't care how good the ending is. You are on page 300 something, and you are still suffering. You're still annoyed. You're still waiting for it to get good. You're still waiting to get into this book. And I did get into it, and there is a very good, like, there's like a chapter or two in the beginning, and then there's like a good section towards the end that's really good and like JLA standard. But there is just some shit that I was like, no, you're not enjoying yourself here. Like, I think if you've read this series so far, I would still recommend that you read this series and this book, because although it was slow, I think if you push through it, there are really good moments. I think if you want to continue from Blood and Ash main series, you need to read this book.
You need to.
And there is a book 4 coming out, unfortunately. If she could have taken whatever book 4 is and combined it with book 3, because here's the thing, is that this is a prequel series. We know where these characters end up later in Poppy's timeline. And so, like, even the epic ending, I got to it and I was like, this is so good. But, like, I knew this was going to happen.
Exactly.
I knew, like, if you've read the most 2 recent From Blood and Ash books, you know exactly where this book is going, and you know exactly what's going to happen in the contents that still haven't been shown on page yet. Like, I know what book 4 is going to be, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that just ruins, like, I don't mind reading a book and knowing where it's going to end. But when you have such a slow start and middle, and then your ending is cool, but I already knew what it was going to be, and then you fill the last 4 chapters with as much smut as you can
to make up for the lost time.
To make up for the loss, I don't know. As I'm talking, I wrote down on the notes I was gonna give it a 3.5, but as I'm talking, like, angering myself up, I'm like, no, this is a 3. This is a fucking 3. And I'm sad because I love this series, and I love Sarah, and I want to like her books more than the From Blood and Ash books, and I want her to be what Poppy's going to be because I love her more, and it just, I don't know, drop the ball.
Drop the ball a little bit.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, like, it just goes back to, I just feel like we don't need to, like, I don't know. Like, at some point, I'm like, is she just doing this for the money now, or does she actually, like, you know what I mean? So, like, that's where I start getting a little upset. But with that being said, if you want to stick around for the plot line, like, either listen to our podcast and get filled in, or continue reading with us, because we're not stopping anytime.
Yeah.
She can release 20 books, and I guarantee you, okay, relax, we'll still have to, yeah. Sorry, my cat is literally deciding it's war. Come on, come be on the podcast, Senna.
Senna is a Ash stan.
Yeah.
She stands Nitos, and she won't stand for any slander.
Yeah, she's like, how dare you? That's mine. What are they? Primal of death. Senna, my cat really would fall for the primal of death. Actually, you know, totally just like side point here. I maybe should rename Senna, my cat, to Sarah, because she's literally that is her character. So, like,
very much so.
I was gonna rename her Segale from Fourth Wing, because she has that, like, just sassy ass energy. But who knows, Sarah may, because she can be sweet. But anyways, all right. I think we should get into our spoilers here.
Yes.
For the sake of time and for everyone just itching for us to get into the juicy details. So, goodbye to everyone who stuck around for that non-spoiler craziness. Come back. Usually our non-spoiler section's a little bit more structured and not so heated. But anyways. So, spoiler. Yeah. Spoiler section wise, going into this, of course, we just have to say 60% of this book just felt like a flippin' flappin' waste. It did.
There's no reason that she couldn't have left Colus's little cage earlier. Like,
Which is so ridiculous. Why did it
everything
take
that
so
was
long?
going on. Why did we spend so many? I think it was up to like page 400 till she got out.
I seriously, this is what I thought. This is how
Yeah.
I thought the book was going to go. I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be stuck in Colus's lair, get it even a little bit more graphic than she went, because Colus never, like, raped her or anything like that. Not saying that should have happened, but even just, like, a little bit more of, like, drama. I don't know if that's good or bad if I say that, but it's just facts.
Yeah.
And then by, like, 200, she had that primal essence in her the whole time. Why didn't she just fucking use it? So anyways, she finds that, like, diamond thing earlier, because when Ates or whatever that primal would come visit her, like, that felt useless to me, other than the fact that, like, we know now that he's, like, on her side. But that felt useless to me. So I feel like she should have broke out around 200. The same, like, Ash comes and, like, rescues her, kind of, and then they do their thing. She goes through the ascension, okay? That whole lake shit. That was probably my favorite part of the book. Loved that part.
Yes.
They do their, like, sex baby thing. It ends with, holy shit, I'm pregnant. Whatever. I hate the pregnancy trope, but we know she's going to be pregnant. So, like,
so it's
we
not
need
like
to
a
move
whole
the
trope.
fucking story along. So it turns out that it's like, oh my gosh, she goes through all that drama at the end, which was amazing, with them taking Satoria's soul out of her, blah, blah, blah. It ends with, holy shit, I'm pregnant. Done.
Yes. Okay. I love that. I would like same thing of, like, moving through the coolest shit faster. Doing the lake scene, I think that's, like, a good, like, high middle point. Because as cool as it was super fucking cool. We did know it was going to happen. Like, Nyctus literally tells Castile, like, hey, the other maiden went through this same, like, ascension and was in a stasis period and woke up and talked to her. Like, that all happened. Like, we knew that was going to happen. So, like, you're getting to it and you're like, oh, is she gonna die? No, we know she's not gonna fucking die. I don't know. But
it took forever to get there.
Then, instead of having, you know, the last 7 chapters of the book be pure smut with one of, I know that there's people into it, but we are going to talk about that sex scene later. Having, like, a little bit of, like, them happy. I would have made it so that way the way she stabbed Coolus in that moment, instead of having him, like, wake up, like, 5 days later or whatever, just make that she got it deep enough that he was going to sleep for a while, possibly centuries. They buried his body wherever it was, like, set it up from Blood and Ash. I don't like the fact that he woke back up. We didn't even see whatever's going on there the end of the book. Like, we just kind of, like, left whatever that was later. Just, like, make that the end of Coolus' time until he wakes back up from Blood and Ash. Show her, like, living happy in the Shadowlands or in Delos because she's the queen. Like, show some cool stuff like that. Show the fact that she gets pregnant. Show, like, do some cute little scenes of her with the twins, you know, some nice little fluff.
Yeah.
And move it to the point where Sarah and Nyctus decide to go to sleep, decide to go in stasis mode. End the book on the moment that Sarah wakes back up in the From Blood and Ash series.
Yes.
That way, because if you like do it of, like, oh, like, we're gonna go into the longest sleep, and then, like, a little, like, epilogue, which is of her like end on the happy ending of them going to sleep. So if, like, for some reason you only read the prequel series, you could leave it there. And then in the epilogue, you can be like, she's awake again.
Yeah, I think an epilogue would be super cool like that. I think that it would just be JLA's decision, like, are you going to dive into the twins' story or not? In my opinion, this is what I feel like. At the lake, we find out that she sees herself with the twin, like, cubs, the cats. Like, that's, like, was super cool, and I was texting Aubrey about that. I was like, I'm confused, but then it made sense, and it was, like, super cute because she ends up having twins. I think it would be cool if, like, the end of the book, it's like, you know how they separate by like the skull, like different sections.
Yeah.
I think it'd be even cool in like an epilogue, or like at the end of the book, and then in the epilogue do the wake thing. But if it was like kind of reminiscent on like having kids, and like we don't dive into the plot line of how they kind of like turn against each other, and like their family kind of gets fucked up with the boys, but kind of like this is a story that will be told then in Poppy's world, and then in the From Blood and Ash series, that's when we get the backstory on what happened between Iris and Malik, or Malek, or whatever. They're too similar, but it doesn't matter. Between the boys, like what happened through.
Dig into that later.
But in Poppy's storyline, like we don't need to relive their story. Like I don't need to hear it. And honestly, I just don't care. You can just skim over that in From Blood and Ash. We got, you know, Niktos and Sarah's story, but like I just feel like it would be like, yes, like now if they ended on that, I'd be like, I'm so excited to read Poppy's story again, because like Sarah's awake, and like what does this mean? And it's exciting. So
instead we left with like literally nothing.
Yeah, now we're just like, oh, there's gonna be another war with Colas, like another book of fighting with Colas, and I'm just kind of over it. Like, figure it out. I know that you all end up going to sleep. Like, how is that gonna happen? I just feel like this was such a filler book, but I'm gonna say something, and there's something I respect and or am pissed off about. When Sarah falls into stasis because of her ascension, Niktos is there the whole time, telling her memories, speaking with her. And this is like a chapter long, right?
Chapter 42.
Chapter 42. So, tell me why we needed a whole ass book reliving memories from Castile's. Like, why did Castile get a book and Ash showed us that it can be done in a chapter?
It could be a chapter. It could Soul of
It could
Ash
be 3
and
chapters.
Blood.
I don't care. But why did we get a whole book of just memories? Like, because I'm reading this and I'm like, wait, Niktos is doing the same thing Castile just did in a chapter.
In a chapter. And
Not
honestly, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I have other thoughts about that, but I was like, this is cute. Like, he's sharing some memories, like their little story together. I got warm feelings, and you know how I felt in Castile's version when I had to read a whole fucking book of his perspective of just the From Blood and Ash book? Bad. I felt bad, Peyton. Felt bad, JLA. That book was a fucking money grab.
She literally, I'm just so mad because I was reading that and I was like, oh my god, this is like from his perspective, like how he saw her as a child, like picking up stones by the lake, and she wasn't scared of the wolf, and he like kind of kept an eye on her the whole time. Then I was like, that's kind of creepy though, like he knows what she looked like when she was little, and they'll be like have sex all the time. But I was like, no, but it's fantasies, it's okay. And I was like, no, this is like so great. And then I was like, wait a minute. Castile did this in the last book I read, and it was a book long.
I swear JLA is in like her Twilight stage. Like,
Yes.
I think she wrote these books because she's so in love with Twilight. And like, listen, I literally I keep the From Blood and Ash books right next to Twilight. Like, I hear you, girl. I hear you loud and clear. But okay, for one, I think the whole Castile book was just her like seeing that Midnight Sun did well. But the reason Midnight Sun did well, which is, if you don't know, Edward's perspective of like the Edward Bella like romance, and it's retelling of Twilight from Edward's perspective. Sound familiar? But the reason that book did well is because it was published like 10 years after Twilight. If you would have waited 10 years after From Blood and Ash to like be like, oh, remember that time when Castile was sharing memories? Here's actually that in detail and given.
And super fans will buy it.
Would have bought it, would have loved it, because I had been removed enough from the story and I already got like the epic conclusion.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, this is like reminiscent of their beginnings and it's so sweet. And like, and that's why we love the first book of anything, because it's like, oh, this is like how they fell in love. And like, of course I would love to see that from his perspective. But like, if we're in the middle of plot lines, and I feel like I need to read this book. And by the way, there is something huge at the end of that book
Yes.
that moves the plot line along. So you have to
Yes.
read it.
Or you can read the last chapter.
First and last chapter. We
Yeah.
said that in that book review. So,
Yeah.
but still, so, but, okay. So when she's in stasis and she's having like those memory flashbacks, I literally remember when Bella was getting turned to a vampire, she was like having like all those flashbacks in her head of her mom and dad and like when she was little. And I'm not saying that that's like Stephanie Myers in like the Twilight series, like that's only like they do that and like no one else does. But with the whole like I'm gonna die and he's like no, and then like starts like sucking on her throat, I'm like, Edward, hey Edward.
Yeah. But for some reason, Ash is also Jacob because he fucking imprinted on her. Like, I swear to God, guys, she uses the word imprint. We see about how Ash was like with her as a kid and he's like, you were such a cute baby and here's you as a child and I've been with you the whole time. And does that not sound familiar? And I just wanted to be like, you fucking imprinted on my child.
She's a fucking kid. Yeah, literally on our note sheet we have the fucking Twilight spiff. Because it is so funny. I even texted Aubrey last night. I kept on seeing the word irrevocably, and I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, I can't do this. And because Bella's like quintessential quote was, and third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. And then, so like I caught, like my brain caught onto that word, and I saw it at least 5 more times, and they both said it. And I was like, and not saying like, once again, that's Twilight's thing, but like the word irrevocably, like when I see that, I always think of Twilight because it's like a weird word people don't really use. And Bella said that in such like a like statement piece where I was like,
yeah. And especially when you're in a vampire book that has vampire and werewolves.
And you were like sucking and saving her.
There's too many similarities. The books are the same shades. This is it. I digress because there's something more important to talk about. And it is that fucking sex scene. Because okay, I have 2, like the spice in this book was so low and I have 2 bones to pick. 1, the fact that before the lake scene, when it's like Sarah's last, like Sarah's like, I'm going to die. This is the last time I will ever get to have sex. What does she do? She goes in for a blowjob?
It was like,
no.
Was that a pity blowjob? Is that a pity blowjob?
No girl ever in their life is like, I'm about to die, and all I want to do is suck on some dick. Like, no.
It's so weird.
I'm like, is she going for a blow? He just said he'd do anything to you. He said he'd go down on you underwater. And you were like, blowjob? The fuck? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Because
I thought that too. I was like, do you feel bad for him and that's why you're doing that, or do you actually just like giving blowjobs that much, Sarah? I was like, make that make sense.
No.
Yeah, and she even said like the line was so full. Like I cringe. Like I'm like, no, my mom's watching. Like whenever I think of like exactly what she said, it's just like weird. Like it makes me uncomfy. Anyways,
the worst scene is later.
Yeah.
After the ascension.
Yeah. So when almost said Castiel, when Nyktos goes, he's like, I like the whole like you better run, like that's kind of hot, but then like the actual scene was really cringy because he went full primal, and when he said you better run, I thought because he was gonna turn into like a wolf, and I was like, well, bitch, like, and she's like, I can take it. I'm like, that's bestiality, and that's not okay. And I'm like, I'm not reading that.
Don't
Sarah
gets Sarah
screwed by a white wolf. Like, I'm not doing that. But then I guess he like goes like stone cold, and he's just like primal. I can't control myself.
Oh, and his dick gets bigger. We make sure to emphasize that fact.
But then the whole time she's like, "You're not hurting me," and I'm like, "What was the point of being like, I'm gonna hurt you?" And it's just like,
yeah.
Ugh. And then
and
the there were some
the shadow
words.
tendrils.
The shadow tendrils. And then
Guys.
the description of private parts, using the word pretty,
No.
just you know if you know. I sent it to all my friends and everyone was like, "What?" I was like, this scene is just for MILFs. If you are a MILF, this scene is for you. But as a almost 22-year-old woman, I just didn't need it.
No.
I'm here for passion. I'm here for love.
Yeah.
Like, I want, sure, add a little bit of dirty in there, but like, no.
Here's the thing, guys, is I know there's people who's into that shit. And if
Cool.
that's you, I respect it. It can
Totally.
be you. It can be your sex life. This is not erotica. She writes erotica. If you want erotica, go read her erotica. Instead, this is my fantasy romance, heavy on the romance, and with spicy scenes. And I don't want that in my spicy scene.
It felt
And
like fanfic.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, if that's for you and that scene worked for you, I'm glad. I was cringing so hard.
The tendrils.
And it was the tendrils. It was the dirty talk that was not working for me at all. It was just too many factors. It was the fact that it was sandwiched between like 8 other sex scenes.
They even mention in the book, they're like, what was this? She goes, 5. Like, she's been counting how many times they had sex. Which I get it. Like, I have read books where it's like they spend a whole night having sex. Like, I think that happened in ACOTAR at some point. I'm like, oh, we're still on this, but this is like, but it's still like, it feels like clean in a way, but I'm not, like, we're not prudes. Like, I love myself a good spicy scene. I like myself a lot of spicy scenes, but it was just like the execution. It honestly felt, and I don't read fanfic for a reason, it felt like a 1D fanfic that's like very descriptive and very, like, this scene felt like an insert scene. Like, she was speaking like from like her own womanly desires and not necessarily maybe the characters.
I don't know.
But don't worry, guys. Sarah is a sneaky little bitch, and she knows exactly how many hair ties Niktos keeps in his little box that he always has.
I hated that. I hated that scene.
Hair ties in a box. She felt bad for opening the box. I'm sorry. I guess it's kind of cute, but like, if my boyfriend had a box always with him, which is weird, I definitely would have opened it by now. And I saw a bunch of hair ties, and especially the way he was talking to me a couple minutes ago, and the way that he was like totally obsessed with me, I'd be like, it's a little creepy.
This is creepy. Also, all I could picture is that, like, whenever you take your hair out of a hair tie, like, it's not just like a good hair tie anymore. Like, there's little strands of hair stuck to that hair tie. And so I'm imagining this box full of like dirty ass little strands of hair tie. Like, you know, she doesn't shower enough because she's afraid of fucking baths. So like, greasy ass hair. No, it's weird.
Sarah, certified stinker.
Yes. And she's like,
you're certified
like,
stinky.
wanted her to take a bath every day, and there was a lot of fucked up stuff that he was doing, but like bathing every day. She was like, it's so weird how he always showers, and I'm like, is it though?
Instead of him saying like pretty pussy, he goes, you see your stinky little like, you just ascended, you're a little stinky. Stinky. And he likes it. Like, I would not put it past. I would not put it past Jayla to be like, stinky.
Your pussy smells like stinky.
Stinky.
We have honeydew. Oh, and what did he said? Fresh sunshine for her. Should have been like fresh stank.
And she's like, he tastes like citrus. I'm like, you taste like garbage.
These people are not brushing their teeth. They are not showering, bathing. They are disgusting. Like,
hopefully, like since she's the primal of life, maybe she'll just like naturally smell better now, and she'll never have.
Yeah.
She's like, good primal life. She's like, oh wow, I guess I have all these new powers. Like, and he's like, you can just summon the array or fates whenever you want. And in her head, she's like, I never have to take a shower again.
you will not catch me bathing.
I don't have to brush my teeth. Great. Sarah's hygiene is just like, even when she was in Colus's little cage, like the fucking Chosen had to come in and shower her. Like she couldn't do it herself.
Yeah. And she was like, why are they making me take a bath all the time? And I'm like,
Colus is like, girl, you
we were
fucking
there for
stink.
like 3 weeks. We took 4 baths. Like,
you stinky. Oh, certified stinker. Yeah, that make it make sense.
That was she. I love her.
Yeah, Sarah's great. Love Sarah. And then when they're
great.
at that like hot spring, and she's like,
yes,
I'm gonna eat the lilacs, and he's like, don't eat the lilacs.
okay. I did not like that they went to the hot spring because that was Poppy and Castile's location. Like, why are you like, you had the lake? Why did your grandparents have to have sex in like your immediate?
Yeah, when you put in context like that, it's like gross.
Like, I was like, oh, you guys are just gonna. Okay. I mean, like, it's not Poppy and Castile's location yet, but JLA knows that. Like, we went to that and we are like, oh, this is Castile's secret spot. And then I was like, wait, this is Castile's secret spot that him and Poppy bang in all the time. And now
I'm gonna do you like our forefathers. Like, this book just sends me off my rocker. Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna eat the lilacs. And he's like, don't fucking eat the lilacs. Like, he's like, girl, I will be back in like 5 seconds. Like, just
she doesn't even like consider like, oh, I'll try to like walk out and go hunt or anything. She's like, I'm just gonna eat the lilacs.
Maybe if I eat lilacs, I won't have to brush my teeth. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know. I think we've. All right, guys. We cannot finish this episode out unless we talk about the biggest reveal, especially if you're a Fruit and Blood and Ash fan, and that is that Poppy is Sartoria.
I mean, they don't necessarily confirm it, but
we know.
Got the red hair.
Yes.
So,
guys, I literally freaked out when I got to the point, and it's just like some casual conversation between Sarah and Colus, like a billion other that happened in this damn book. But she's like, oh, what does Sartoria's name mean? And I'm like, shut up, you stupid bitch. Who cares? And then he's like, my pretty Poppy. And then you're like, what? And then like you see, and like they take the soul and they put in the thing. But
and she's like, we will meet again. I'm like, but you will meet again. You're right, we will meet again.
Yeah.
And side note, Callum is fucking
her brother,
yeah.
Which makes me want to go back to War of Two Queens to see if Poppy and Callum ever interact. Because assuming that Poppy is like Sartoria, like reborn, done right, she should look exactly like Sartoria. So Callum should look at her and immediately know that's his sister. But we know Callum is like the worst person ever. And he's like such an asshole. So
yeah, I'm really curious, and it makes sense now why Poppy was placed in the position she was, why she was named the way she was.
Yes.
At the end, of course, when Colus is like risen again, like it all makes sense. And this is the plot progression we needed, not everything else makes
That's the only chapter you needed to keep in the first like 200 pages. I also wonder how much like Isbeth or whatever, Poppy's mom, knew about that interaction, because her whole plan was to raise Colus, and maybe it's because she knew Poppy would be like Colus's bitch, and she just thought Poppy would go along with it. We'll see.
Yeah, there are a lot of unanswered things, because if the Embers are in Sarah, they're not in Satoria, but Satoria is the only person that can kill Colas. Therefore, Poppy is the only person that can kill Colas.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, throw them in that diamond. We'll deal with it later.
Well, no. They just put Satoria's soul in the diamond. The ember stayed in Sarah, and then she ascended, and that's why she's now the true primal of life.
Oh, I thought they said that Satoria is the only person that can kill Colas. Like,
yes, she is because she is Colas's heartmate, not because of the primal embers.
Right. So, still, Colas can't die.
Yes.
Poppy will be the one to kill him.
Yeah, Poppy's gonna be the one to kill him, which is gonna be epic. But it's also why, like, we don't need to see Sarah and Colas fight again, because we know, like, she's not gonna be able to kill him, and it's going to end with them all just going to sleep.
Yeah.
So
You'd be right.
It'd be crazy. I think From Blood and Ash 6 is going to answer a lot of these questions, hopefully. Before we wrap up here, because as exciting as that was, like, there's nothing more to say about it. What were your favorite moments in this book? Because we said a lot of hate towards this book, but at the end of the day, we're going to keep reading. So Peyton, what was your favorite moment? What was the one good chapter in this book?
Definitely the lake part. Love that.
Okay, yes.
And I am gonna try to find my red underlining. I have my favorite quote in here. But yeah, definitely the lake part where she's like ascending, like, and the water like comes out of the lake, and it's kind of badass, and it was just the fantasy like your girl was looking for. And it's what I needed. And I loved it. So
yeah,
that's probably my favorite part. Not the whole Twilight thing. But I'm excited to see her learn how to use her powers. Like, I think that's gonna be so much fun. Yeah. My favorite funny moment in this book is when we're introduced to Craven, and we're getting an idea of the Ascended and Vampires, kind of, and like, it's interesting because in Poppy's story, there's only one chosen, she's the chosen, but now, like, in this realm, there's so many chosen. And then they're kind of the third sons and daughters that we know of now.
Yeah, that are like Poppy's the babies that get drained in Poppy's time.
Awkward. So anyways, she sees a Craven, and she like doesn't understand what it is, and it's like coming to attack her. And she's like confused, and she's like, oh my god, that's not okay, because this bitch looked like she was starving. And it's just like, this bitch.
Wait, that wasn't the Craven. That was the Ascended. The Craven is the dude then. But yeah, she sees the bloodthirsty Ascended, and she's like, you look hungry.
Oh, I had a sick feeling that both of them were chosen, aka Ascended.
Yeah.
But she was what Jem had spoken of, the chosen who went missing and returned hungry. Bloodthirst, blah, blah, blah. Because this
Our
bitch
vampires.
looked like she was starving. Yes, vampires.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay,
so,
I think my favorite... What?
Funny moments.
Funny moments. Just girly things. I think that my favorite moment, one, I loved in, like, chapter 4 when she's, like, has that underwater scene with the Corrine, and they're giving her the life back, and then she realizes it's killing them. Like, that was such a strong moment.
Yeah.
That was very, like, poetic. I was like, go off, JLA. And then I love at the end in the lake when she sees, like, right as she's waking up, she sees the big cave cat, which I'm assuming is Poppy, and that also means that Poppy's gonna be a cave cat too, which, like, kind of sucks because I wanted her to be a wolf because I think wolves are cooler than cave cat, but whatever. And then she sees the 2 other cave cats behind her, and at first I was like, who the fuck are these people? But I think they're supposed to be her twins, because there was 2 cave cats the same size. And she's said, like, oh, like, look at their eyes. Like, I saw myself in them or whatever. Right. Like, I looked at them and it was me. Like, hers, like, getting this little vision of her babies, especially after she was like, I actually could maybe, like, enjoy having kids with Ash. Like, I think he'd be a good father. And, like, if you're in your 20s, you know the feeling. You know your ovaries being like, he could be a good dad to my children.
Yeah, I love the foreshadowing of that scene. That like little snippet, I even know exactly where it is on the page.
Yeah.
I love that part because we know what happens. There are some cute moments. There are really haha funny moments too. So A Fire in the Flesh. Let us know
Yes.
your thoughts, feelings, concerns, anger, happiness. Are you still reading this book, or are you even watching this podcast anymore? So anyways, we're always looking for recommendations. Stay tuned because your girl is reading Iron Flame right now.
Yes, we're so excited. Next week.
Yeah, next week will be our Iron Flame episode. And girl, it is going down. I'm so excited. Recommendations as such, we will always take, and let us know your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. All right. Until next time. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy reading.